Yay, yay, it's Thursday. It is time for the weekend, baby. But before we head into the weekend, you guys know I love some time with you, my Israel briefers from all around the world. So in case you are new, I am Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where we check in with the top stories making headlines in Israel. We do it every Monday to Thursday, and we do it in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And we put out a weekly newsletter with original articles and content and your recaps of the Israel Brief once a week. So if you would like to receive it, please be in touch with us via our website. It is Thursday, which means I will announce your Mensch and your morons of the week. And it's quite interesting because the morons of the week are pretty much unanimous. And of course, I will take that audience question. And today is quite a corker. But before we get into it, let's just remind everybody that it is day 636 since the atrocities of the 7th of October. That was the day over 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals were murdered, raped, mutilated, and burnt. A horrific day in history, the darkest day in Israel's history, and the most horrific attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And I keep speaking about it because the world is forgetting the atrocities of that day, which resulted in the war between Israel and Hamas. 250 plus people were taken hostage by Hamas and other terror entities, and 50 still remain captive. We want them all free. We want them all free now. So let's take a look at the top stories, and we begin with the discussion around a possible ceasefire deal which would see the release of some hostages. Now, I'm not going to go into the details about how many hostages we might see released, which ones will be alive, and the remains that Israel is due to receive, because we don't know those details for definite. What we do know are some of the expectations from Israel's side, and they include that the IDF retains a presence in the Philadelphia corridor. Now, this is to prevent smuggling of weapons and other material from Egypt into the Gaza Strip. That the army is allowed to conduct raids in the Strip to prevent terrorism before withdrawing again. And I think that this is a reasonable request. We know that we will never ever see the total end of Hamas, but to protect our citizens, to prevent acts of terror, and also to protect these civilians in Gaza, the IDF should be able to conduct raids. That Hamas is deposed as the government of Gaza. We've certainly started to hear from Palestinians in the Gaza Strip who want Hamas out, who acknowledge their suffering under Hamas. And in fact, Prime Minister Netanyahu addressed this issue. He said there will be no Hamas done. He said that is over. Hamas's time governing the Gaza Strip is over. And that a symbolic number of Hamas leaders are expelled from the territory, so that they are kicked out of Gaza. So we look forward to seeing what will come out of the meeting on Monday between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. President Trump has already said that Israel has accepted conditions for a ceasefire. The onus is now on Hamas. I just have to apologize if you are hearing a lot of barking in the background. My neighbor has a new pup, and the pup isn't settling yet, so it is barking a lot. So, of course, we just want to make sure our little furry friend, who is a little Shih Tzu, is okay and that he acclimates. So that background noise I just want to apologize for. We now go to Iran, and Iran has suspended cooperation with the IAEA. This is the International Atomic Energy Association, the watchdog under the auspices of the UN. Now, this move has been condemned by both the United States and by Israel. Iranian President Pezeshkian approved the draft law that was passed by the Iranian parliament. The Iranians have removed the cameras that were in the remaining nuclear facilities, those that don't pose an immediate threat to Israel, and have banned the director of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, from entering the country. Meanwhile, the Pentagon have confirmed that they believe that the strikes on Fordo, Isfahan and Natanz have set the Iranian nuclear program back by at least 2 years. Israel will open its first embassy in Estonia. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar was in the capital Tallinn yesterday, and he announced this in a joint press conference with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister of Estonia. Sa'ar went on to say that Estonia is an important country, a member of the European Union and of NATO and other international organizations, and is a pioneer in digital governance. Foreign Minister Sa'ar reiterated that the opening of an embassy will strengthen ties, friendship and cooperation. And finally, now to the United Kingdom, where the pro-Palestinian organization Palestine Action, the draft for their proscription has been approved or passed by a vote of 385 to 26 in the House of Commons. Now, if the proscription is passed after it is debated by Parliament, I think that is either happening today or tomorrow, the law will go into effect over the weekend and see anyone who supports or has a membership of Palestine Action be jailed for up to 14 years. Now, this follows the damaging of 4 RAF aircraft at the Breeze Norton Air Base in recent weeks. Palestine Action has become a nuisance, and let's hope that this bill passes in the Parliament and that punitive action can be taken against its supporters. So those are our top stories. Let's get to the audience question. It's a great one. It comes from Richard in London, who says, I am not Jewish, but I do support Israel. In your opinion, should Tim Davie resign? So a little bit of background. Tim Davie is the Director General of the BBC, and following the weekend's absolutely appalling broadcasting of Bob Villan and Kneecap at the Glastonbury Festival chanting some horrific, violent invective against Jews and the IDF, it has emerged that Tim Davie, who's the head of the BBC, was at Glastonbury, could have done something about it, and it follows not just this incident, but incidents throughout this war where the BBC refused to acknowledge that Hamas is a terrorist organization, have basically acted as a mouthpiece for Hamas, and even their record prior to the 7th of October speaks of horrific institutionalized anti-Semitism. In fact, the Assassin report that was conducted, I think, shortly after the 7th of October, found that the BBC had breached its own impartiality regulations over 1,000 times. Well, it is time for somebody to take responsibility and accountability for the cesspit that the BBC has become. And in my opinion, Richard, I believe that Tim Davies should resign and that legal action should actually be taken against him and the leadership of the BBC. So that is your audience question. We now get to that moment you guys all love, and that is your Mensch and your moron. So this week's Mensch, we have 2 Mensches. One is the Home Interiors, or the Interiors Ministry of Australia, for revoking the visa of the artist formerly known as Kanye West, currently known as Ye, and in my house known as Yadolf. for his bigotry and his anti-Semitism, and for releasing a song called Heil Hitler. The next group of Mensches is very, very special. To me, it shows a glimmer of hope in a region torn by war. And those were the peace activists inside the Gaza Strip, who the other day held up photos of Israeli children who had been murdered by Hamas on the 7th of October and in captivity, and included pictures of Ariel and Kfir Bibas, as well as the Simantov children and other children who had been murdered. They did this to acknowledge the pain experienced by Israelis following Israeli anti-war protesters holding up pictures of children in Gaza who had been killed as a result of the war. And we know that it takes incredible bravery, incredible courage for peace activists in Gaza to do this, given that Hamas is still in control. And I firmly believe that we will start to build peace when we acknowledge the pain experienced by both sides of this age-old conflict, and we start to heal from there. And peace won't be built by the top down, it will be built between the people upwards. Now for your morons. So we have a few candidates for morons. This is pretty much unanimous. The first is Ye, just as somebody put it, for being a super moron. I fully concur. And the rest, Bob Villain, the BBC, and Glastonbury, for allowing that absolute travesty of a music festival, which we now see as the equivalent of the Nuremberg Festival, for the chanting of death to the IDF and for the extermination of the Jewish state with that from the river to the sea chant. So Bob Villain, BBC and Glastonbury, no surprise, you are our morons of the week. So guys, that's it from me. Please don't forget to join me again on Monday. I will probably be in and around the country, so you might not get the studio view of the Israel Brief. You might get a surprise view. I'm not going to say just yet. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel right here at the Israel Brief. If you like our content, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get us over that 2,000 subscriber mark. We are on Meta or Facebook at Lottel's site, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, and on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, and on X at Lay of the Land 5. So guys, wishing you all a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you again on Monday. Bye for now.